Hi everyone, welcome to this video for the Middle Ages for Educators website. My name is Quentin Verreycken. I am a visiting lecturer at St. Louis University in Brussels, Belgium. I specialize in the history of criminal justice and social regulation in the late Middle Ages, with a focus on 15th century France, England, and the Low Countries. In this presentation, I will introduce you to one of my favorite sources to study and teach medieval violence and sociability. And I will show you the fantastic related online materials you can find on the internet, including digital editions, modern translations, and inventories you can use in this time of social distancing. The sources I will be presenting you today are called pardon letters. They are also known as lettres de rémission in French, or brieven van remissie in Dutch, as well as cartas de perdón in Spanish. Medieval pardon letters were legal documents by which a king or prince granted a pardon to individuals who had committed a crime and thereafter petitioned for mercy. These charters of pardon took the form of a letter patent delivered by the chancery, and they usually contained a description of the crime committed by the recipient, as well as the legal formulas of pardon and suspensions of penalties. To obtain a pardon letter, the future pardon recipient usually had to submit a petition to the royal or ducal chancery, which transmitted the document to the king or prince and his council for examination. If the case was considered remissible, the pardon letter was issued by the chancery. The recipient then had to purchase it and go to a local court to endorse the letter and make an arrangement with the victim party. It is only after the letter was confirmed or ratified by the court that the pardon was effective and the beneficiary could go back to their normal life. For historians, pardon letters are fascinating. Some charters of pardon could be very brief and formulaic, such as those granted in 14th and 15th century England. Others, such as the remission letters granted by the King of France and some other princes like the Dukes of Burgundy, contained extremely rich narratives, describing with a lot of details the circumstances of the crime. In fact, these pardon narratives were usually a barely altered copy of the petition submitted by the future pardon beneficiary, who narrated their crime and explained why they deserved to be pardoned. Therefore, pardon letters are a fantastic material to study medieval sociability and violence, social conflicts, genders, roles, as well as legal culture and criminal justice. The stories they contain are an extremely valuable resource for students to discover the ordinary lives of the humble people in the late Middle Ages. Yet, when I teach my students about pardon letters, I also insist on methodological issues about these sources. The narratives of pardon letters must be analyzed very carefully because they were constructed legal argumentations designed to support the demand for pardon. These narratives were often elaborated with the help of lawyers, notaries, or chancery clerks who suggested to the supplicant how they should tell their story to make their crime acceptable. Thus, despite their vivid narratives preserving medieval voices, pardon letters, as most medieval sources, cannot be considered as the neutral anthropological description of the deeds of the people of the past. And when you are reading pardon letters, you frequently suspect that some petitioners are lying or altering the truth. As such, pardon letters are also a valuable support to teach historical critical method And I invite you to check the short bibliography I attached to this video if you want to know more about these issues. Now that I have presented what pardon letters are, let me discuss one of these letters with you. The remission letter I will show you has been granted in 1455 by the Duke of Burgundy, Philip the Good, to a 24 years old Flemish noblewoman named Antonie van Clairaudt, who committed infanticide on her newborn baby. This letter has been translated by Peter Arnaud and Walter Prevenir in their 2015 monograph about ducal pardons, and it is this translation I will use for this presentation. I also recommend you to check this book if you want to get other translations of remission letters. So, the narrative in the pardon letter starts with an explanation on how Antonie fell in love with a young man named Georges Perc. She often consumed mustard seeds to avoid pregnancy, but it was not very effective, and she got pregnant of him. Thereafter, she followed her uncle to the castle of Lichterveld to have an appointment with her brother and discuss an inheritance to which they were both party. And then, and here I am starting to quote the letter, it happened that the supplicant was at the aforesaid Lichterveld in a hostel named the Cour de Bousbec on December 16th of that year, which was a Sunday, when, sometime before noon, she gave birth to a child. She quickly wrapped the child up, naked as he was born from her womb, in one of her shirts, and at this point held the child close to her, covered with a robe until the next day, a Monday. Then, around 10 in the morning, determined to keep what happened a secret, and fearing the wrath and indignation of her uncle, the aforesaid Lord of Lichterveld, and tempted by the enemy, that is to say the devil, she took a knife and cut the throat of the aforesaid child. She hung the child from the neck with one of her garters and threw the corpse in the same state as it had been born into a ditch filled with water in the hostel's garden, staying there a little to watch it would sink. When she saw that it had sunk to the bottom, she returned to her room and pretended to be sick and menstruating, so that no one will pay attention to her. End of quote. Finally, the corpse of the child was found a bit more than a month later, and Antonie was immediately suspected and imprisoned. The crime of infanticide was one of the most serious categories of crime in the Low Countries, and it was punished by death. Yet, Antonie managed to get a pardon letter from Philip the Good, claiming that she committed the crime because of her youth and the fear to be discovered by her family. For an ordinary woman, such a weak argument would probably not have been a sufficient reason to be pardoned. Yet, in the case of Antonie van Clairaudt, the petitioner was a noblewoman, and her petition was supported by some lords and relatives who interceded on her behalf. Philip the Good accepted to grant her a pardon with the condition that Antonie joined a closed monastery to become a nun for the rest of her life. Moreover, Antonie had the obligation to transfer to the Duke all of her fiefs, lands, and all other goods and revenues. As we can see, the story of Antonie van Clairaudt is fascinating in many ways. The narrative tells us about the desperation of a young noblewoman who involuntarily got pregnant and killed her newborn baby to avoid a scandal. The letter also shows us a person of noble status, shows us how a person of noble status could use patronage and political networks to obtain a pardon for a very serious crime. Finally, to quote Arnaud and Prevenir, This case is an illustration of the financial interests of the Duke of Burgundy, who took this opportunity to have a tidy gain in property and income in exchange from sparing Anthony van Clairot from capital punishment. To conclude this presentation, let me show you a couple of resources you can use to teach about late medieval pardon letters. In France, the Humanis project recently digitized most of the French Trésor des Chartes, the records of royal remission letters and other letters patents granted by the king. So you can use the Humanis website to navigate through the Trésor des Chartes and read tens of thousands of remission letters from the 14th to the 15th century, as you can see here. It is therefore an extremely valuable resource to the training in paleography, and the website also includes a text recognition device, which means that you can also look for specific keywords in the documents. If you want to study English pardon letters, you can use the calendars of patent rolls that have been digitized on the Antitrust website. These calendars contain a complete description of the records of letters patents granted by the English crown, including, as you can see here, pardon letters. You can also find pardon letters granted in Gascony and recorded in the Gascon rolls, which have been recently digitized and calendared in a dedicated website by the Gascon Rolls project. And so you can see here, there's the calendar, but you also have the complete records that have been photographed and digitized here. You can also use the website of the National Archives to check the archive series SC8, Special Collections Ancient Petitions, which contains photographs of thousands of petitions submitted to the Crown, including several hundreds of petitions for pardon. This series has been entirely calendared on the website, so again, you can look for specific keywords to find petitions for pardons, and each petition has a complete description, and you can also find the photograph right here. Finally, if you are looking for collections of transcribed and edited pardon letters, you can find several resources online, like here, the Recueil des documents concernant le Poitou, which contains a lot of remission letters and abolition letters granted by the kings of France. Again, I invite you to check the bibliography attached to this video, which contains the links to some of these modern editions. Okay, guys, so this is the conclusion of my presentation. If you have any other question or need any other information about pardon letters, please don't hesitate to contact me. I will be very happy to help. I wish you to enjoy using these documents as a teaching support, and I thank you for watching this video.